everyone, welcome to the Royal Variety. Sorry, this isn't my usual type of video, but it's going to be a little rambling, a little disorganized, because this is pretty spur of the moment. I'm going to talk today about anxiety. Now, obviously, anxiety can take a bunch of different forms, and well, there's no really one way to describe anxiety because it can be experienced in a multitude of ways. I'm going to mostly talk about my own experience. So I started having semi-serious anxiety probably around the time that I was, I'd say 15 was when it really got bad. And I didn't understand what triggered my anxiety at that time. But what I learned later in life was that it is triggered by primarily things that I cannot control. I used to have serious panic attacks about things like the end of the world and politics and new stupid laws like SOPA and PIPA. But, and the scariest thing about it was the fact that no matter what I wanted, no matter how scared I was of how horrible these things were going to be, there was nothing I could do to stop them. So I realized that I have serious control issues. I used to be on anti-anxiety medication, but I don't think that it really helped all that much. In fact, I think I quit taking it. I went off the medication sometime during high school, maybe. Or maybe it was shortly after high school, but I think it was like sophomore or senior year of high school that I finally stopped taking it. And looking back, I'm not sure that whether it did or did not help very much, or if it was just the placebo effect of me thinking it was going to help. But I've actually come a long way, and I've learned how to realize that I'm going into an anxiety attack and how to pull myself out of it. But to this day, my problems are triggered by things that I cannot control. And sometimes they're triggered by things I've done in the past, but that's not nearly as often. And it's by things that I'm afraid of that I can't do anything, or at the very least can do very little to prevent. And what it's like living with anxiety is that some days it's easier. Sorry, I'm trying not to cry on you guys. So some days it is easier, as in I feel pretty good and I can mostly ignore it. Some days it's down, my anxiety is down enough that I don't really feel it. It's not so bad. But when it's triggered by something, it gets triggered hard. And when it is triggered hard, it usually takes a couple of days before it will subside back down. And I have to be very careful during those days. I can't stand things like watching the news or, I can't follow politics at all because it'll drive me nuts. And, like I said, some days it's easier and I can mostly get by. And that's kind of what gets me through the low spots. Is I learned in high school. I started recognizing my mental patterns at that age. And probably around senior year, I realized that despite the low points, there's going to be high points again. And I can get there if I just stick it out. And what it's like living with anxiety is you feel like everything you know might be a lie. When your anxiety gets up, it's like things you can depend on don't seem dependable. You feel like your family and friends don't really care about you, and they're just putting up with you to be nice. Despite how ironic that is, of thinking that they put up with you despite not liking you. And anxiety puts the worst possible scenario in your head without fail. And it can be hard to push that worst scenario back. And it makes you question things that you've always had the utmost faith in. Like, hold on one second. Okay, I'm better. Sorry, guys. I had to compose myself. So when you have anxiety, it is like anything that you have this perception of what is normal. What is normal in the world, the normal behavior of the people around you. And when anxiety is high, anything that throws off that perception of normal makes you feel like it's a sign of terrible things to come. And sometimes I've had times where that triggers a full-on anxiety attack. I have not had a full-on anxiety attack in definitely over a year, because I have figured out when it's coming and how to ground myself to the real world, and how to distract myself with video games or manga or TV or whatever it takes to calm me down. And when you have anxiety, you feel like your mental state is very fragile. And you can lose trust in everything that you thought you trusted. I don't know. Like, wait a minute, that sounded stupid. Lose trust in everything you thought you trusted. I guess think everything you know was a lie worked better. But my anxiety primarily takes the form of doubt. Even when I know everything is going to be okay logically, the anxiety will not stop putting terrible thoughts in my head. I've never talked about this on camera before. I have a hard time talking to real people about this, so I thought maybe recording a video would be easier. And it is a little bit easier. Sometimes when I have anxiety, it's easier to, I'm sorry I keep rambling like this, but it's easier to read about something sad, like a fictional story, one of those Lifetime movie crap things, and cry over those characters, than to admit that something's actually wrong with you. Because people who have anxiety, or people who don't have anxiety, have a very hard time understanding it. And I don't blame them. Excuse me again. Sorry again. So, like I was saying, I don't blame people who don't have anxiety for not understanding it, because it's a mental disorder. I mean, I don't want to say it is on the same level of impairment to your life as something like ADHD or something like that. But in a way, they're similar, because it's really hard to understand what that person is going through, because it's an altered lens. It's a different way of looking at life. And it's something that you have to learn to live with. And I've been trying for a long time to conquer my anxiety. But, and while I still haven't really beaten it, I don't know if I'm ever truly going to beat it. I know that whether I do or not, I'm not going to stop fighting. I'm not going to let it take away all my quality of life. And if you're struggling with something similar, with a mental disorder or illness of some type, I urge you not to give up either. Because no matter what it seems like, there is hope out there. And the only way that you can truly lose the battle is if you stop fighting. Okay, sorry, gotta take another break. I'm sorry about all these guys. Okay, so as I was saying, if you are suffering from a similar condition, or even a not similar condition, I urge you to keep fighting and stay strong, because you can only lose the battle if you stop fighting. And I'm not going to stop fighting. Thank you for watching. Sorry this video is so unscripted and random. I usually do some light scripting when I sit down for a video. Not this one. Usually there's multiple takes, multiple versions. Like the version you see is probably like the 5th or 6th one I recorded. But not this time. This is just my honest thoughts, and what's going up is what's going up. Thank you all, and we'll have a happier video for you at the Raw Variety next time. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.